cabinet table when they first meet. Other key jobs announced today are William Hague as Foreign Secretary and Theresa May as Home Secretary and Minister for Women and Equality. Dr. Liam Fox is named as Defence Secretary, and Ken Clarke takes on the role of Lord Chancellor and Justice Secretary. Andrew Lansley assumes responsibilities for health. Michael Gove is Education Secretary. Former party leader Ian Duncan Smith becomes Work and Pensions Secretary. And in the past hour, Jeremy Hunt has been named as Secretary of State for Culture, Olympics, Media and Sport. Well, during the weeks of election campaigning, the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats attacked each other on key policy areas. Now they have to work together on a joint programme. Our Deputy Political Editor, James Landale, examines the coalition compromises at the heart of the new government.
At last, the document that matters. Yes, the jokes and personal chemistry may be important in this coalition, but it's the cold, hard print on this paper, handed out in Downing Street's Rose Garden, that really matters.
So, this is it. After 5 days of negotiations, 4 pieces of paper that have allowed this coalition to be created. Effectively, a new manifesto that's going to change our lives.
A manifesto drawn up in part by these men, 2 politicians from 2 different parties, working together at the Treasury to preside over the biggest spending cuts for a generation. This is what coalition means.
This is a very vivid demonstration of the determination of our 2 parties to put party interests aside and form a government of the national interest.
I agree very much with George that if this partnership and this coalition is going to work, it has to be on the basis of a joint acceptance of the responsibilities and the very tough choices that have to be made.
So what's the government agreed to do? Well, it'll press ahead quickly with the Tories' plans for £6 billion of spending cuts this year. There'll be a referendum on limited voting reform, along with fixed-term parliaments, so no election for 5 years. A planned rise in employers' national insurance, the jobs tax, won't now happen, but employees will pay more, and there'll be a substantial increase in the tax-free personal allowance, paid for by raising some capital gains tax. But the Tories have had to put any inheritance tax cuts on hold. The Lib Dems have had to drop their amnesty for long-term illegal immigrants. Tory plans for marriage tax cuts look doubtful as the Lib Dems won't have to back it, and they in turn have had to rule out all hopes of joining the euro for 5 years. In other words, both sides have had to compromise to get the things they really wanted.
The way you can keep the government together is not to try and do difficult things. So things I really want as a Conservative, I accept I'm not going to be able to do because we didn't win an overall majority. I think my Liberal Democrat new friends are going to have to say things they really want to do as Liberal Democrats that our changes are not going to be possible unless we also agree with them. And so let's do those things together that we all agree with, and that will be much easier.
Parliament has not seen the like of this for more than half a century. 2 parties voting together. Yes, Lib Dems will be able to abstain on some tricky issues, but for the most part, they and their Tory counterparts will together give the coalition a majority in the House of Lords and the House of Commons. So, what are the numbers? Well, the Tories will make up the bulk of the government benches with 306 MPs. Alongside them, there'll be 57 Lib Dems. On the other side of the floor will sit Labour's 258 MPs, and the other parties 28 MPs in all, giving the coalition a comfortable working majority of 82.
Nick Clegg!
Oh yes, and Nick Clegg won't stand here anymore. He'll be at the dispatch box, sometimes even answering Prime Minister's questions if Mr Cameron's away. So the new double act of British politics have the relationship, manifesto and numbers that could make this coalition work, as long as their parties and opponents let them. James Landale, BBC News, Westminster.
And of course,